this next podcast really covers a range of subjects. I've been talking with Mr. Azzo himself, Mohit Kumar. He'll hate me because I said that. We talked on a range of things, including Indian classical musical instruments, sitar, tabla, his love of music in general, both Western and Indian, his passion for all things renewable, and something that he developed when he used to revisit his homeland, which was Fiji. He's a Fijian Indian, and he saw the impact of global warming on the surrounding islands of where he used to live. Now, he's one of those rare people. He's an A grade and an engineer. He now works for Azzo. We talked microgrids, we talked embedded generation, we talked FCAS, and there's a few different varieties of FCAS, and energy arbitrage. I really enjoy that. He's such a charismatic person. It was a true pleasure talking with him, and he's definitely coming back. So without further ado, strap yourselves in and get ready to listen to a pretty interesting podcast. Before I forget, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel, and also to Greenwood Academy. Let's get stuck into it. Have you got much knowledge on virtual systems? Like for instance, what they're trying to do with these solar farms is model them as there's the real solar farm, but we've also got the virtual solar farm.
You're talking about like modeling on how this operation of the solar, on how that would work. I mean, there's a lot of platforms out there like GridCog and all these other platforms. I haven't had really direct experience with that because generally that's sort of something that's done by a consultant or something along those lines, right? But we don't really get in. I've done a bit of stuff with PV systs, where you put in the operational envelopes of the system when it's looking to operate, what inverter, all of that type of stuff, the degradation properties and all of that type of stuff into place, and then it sort of gives a bit of a model. But that stuff, how accurate it is, I mean, I think it's pretty accurate to a certain degree, but then you've got environmental changes. I mean, how do you know what's going to happen next year to the sun?
It's all predictive, isn't it? Like exactly. I call it. It's like gambling. It's speculative, but that's a really good point. I reckon we would start with music. I mean, we were talking off camera before about your love of music. Can you give us a bit of background about what kind of music you are into, what instruments you play, and we'll delve in there in a bit of detail. Yeah,
sure. So I guess I started with Indian music. Growing up, my grandfather was a musician, not as a profession, more of as a hobby, but he was a very good musician. Used to sing and also play tabla and dholak, which is traditional Indian instruments. And
can you explain what the tabla is?
Yeah, sure. So a tabla is a percussion instrument. You've got two sides to the tabla, the left and the right side, depending on which hand you play with. Obviously, you can swap it around. But you got the dagga, which is the back end of the tabla, and then you've got the front side, which is for the treble, and then the bass side. I guess he didn't really used to play too much tabla. He mainly used to play dholak, which is similar instrument, but cylinder sort of
I've
shape.
seen those, yeah.
So it looks like a congo, right? A little bit like that, but you've got a front and rear side. So I used to sort of play that instrument with him and used to sing, and he used to tell me off a lot. So whenever I used to get any beats wrong, he'd stop me midway and just say, "You've made a mistake." I was, okay, all right, how do I fix this? He goes, "You need to play it this way." So he'd rectify my mistakes and made me play better and understand music. And he used to play also an instrument called harmonium, which looks... Have you ever heard of that?
Harmonium?
Yeah.
I have, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. So it's a bit like a piano. Pretty much the keys and everything is similar to a piano. Same. But you've got a ballast system, which feeds air through the ballast. And, as more you're pumping it, the more sound you're getting out of it. So like an accordion. Very similar.
But not like a pipe organ.
No.
Okay.
Because then you're blowing into it. This is more...
No, pipe organ is like a church organ.
Oh, church organ. No.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't say it's like that. You're sort of... It's one-handed movement where you're sort of pushing like this, and the other one where you're playing. So, it looks like a piano, but just with a ballast system, pretty much.
Really interesting.
Yeah. It's,
similar sound to a piano, or
very similar, but just more hardy. So it's like it's very sort of manual. It's a bit like Wow. I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah, wow.
But it is a quite nice instrument. They use it in a lot of German music as well, a lot of English music. But traditional Indian instruments is where I sort of started as a percussionist. Then obviously growing up, listening to all genres of music, R&B, jazz, hip hop, everything in between pretty much. I really didn't get into any hard metal type of stuff, but everything else between that, I sort of, got into that. And I think, if you're a music fan, you generally love a little bit of everything, right? So.
And do you see when you listen to music, are you constantly aware of that connection between like nearly all music?
Yeah.
Is that really strong in you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, the bass lines of any music tracks are very, very similar. You start with, like a bass line, as I said, and then, your chords that fill into that, your guitar strings, and then all other following instruments that go into it. It's like an ecosystem of different instruments that go in there to make one song. So, but once you get into sort of like bit of music production type of stuff, which I like doing as well, as a part-time hobby. So once you sort of start listening to a lot of different types of music, you understand that the basics of it are the same, much like the industry we work in, where the fundamentals are still the same, but it's a combination of different things, and they might come in different stages, but it's a process pretty much.
I know there is, I suppose, one sort of difference, and I want if you could expand on this a bit, is that like in Western music you've got that tone, semitone aspect, and you've got your major and minor scales based on those tonal intervals, whereas in Indian music, for example, the sitar, it's a completely different system, isn't it?
It is. It's pretty much everything is unlimited in that area, even with the tabla and other instruments. But sitar is a very classical instrument, and also a bassline instrument as well. So, the tabla generally follows what the sitar player is doing. So, and sitar is isn't a very old instrument. It's been, in Indian classical music for a very long time. But you're right in saying, talking about, in general Western music, you got minor, major. In Indian music, it's a mixture of everything. So you can go minor and then major scale, and then something else is thrown in there. So their singing range is actually quite higher generally. Right. If you listen to some of the music artists, they call it Qawwali music, which is like it's like a folk type music. You'll see that the instruments played in that, and the singer's range is quite phenomenal. Right. So
they have quite a few. I'll use the word octaves range. Yeah. Is that from the training? That
So they train. They literally break their voices and then to go to those sort of ranges to sing like that. Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal, to be honest. It is something that I think generally when there's a couple of reaction videos, I think when people on YouTube listen to that type of music and they sort of say, "Wow, like I didn't think that was a thing," but it's a pretty cool industry. Speaking of Qawwali music, actually, when COVID was actually happening, I was working at AGL at that time, actually, and I was into, obviously, music a lot. I made a music track just for a bit of fun. I thought, you know what? I'll make one music track, and it's just a simple track, me and my cousin sitting down playing traditional instruments just in the bedroom, right? And we played that, put that track up, it ended up getting really crazy views on Facebook. It went viral, and
it was it was over 1 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 1.8. 1.8.
That's you should be so proud of that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a thing, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was a thing. But it ended up getting 1.8 million views. And the music artist from Pakistan, he's a very famous guy. For anyone that's into Indian music, they'd know Rahat Fateh Ali Khan. And he and his tabla player, which is Dildar Hussain, reached out. And I thought, okay, they sent a message saying that we like the way that you're playing the dholak and we should have a chat. And I thought, maybe this is a scam call, like a scam message.
You would think that, wouldn't you? Yeah.
You know, that these guys are, superstars. Why would they reach out to some guy in Melbourne, right? Who's nobody. But yeah, I had a call come through and it sounded pretty legitimate. So I said, I don't want to be rude, but do you want to put the video on?
Yeah, just to make sure. That's
and
funny.
it was actually him. It was Rahat Fateh Ali Khan with the tabla player Dildar Hussain, Ustad Dildar Hussain, who's a very famous tabla player. And he said that, I want to teach you a few things about the tabla and a few new tals and stuff that you can learn just to improvise and play better. I said, I'd love to do that. But that day was a big, light bulb moment for me. It makes you realize like how small the world actually is on social media. Like, small in the sense that, you think that things are impossible, but they actually are possible. Like, I didn't think that, this celebrity singer is going to reach out to me. That's didn't even think twice about it. But it is actually a small world whilst being a big world. So I think that, in a lot of people's minds, I think that they can't do certain things or shouldn't try certain things. I would say just give it a shot. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Wow. That's good. I think that's really good advice. Yeah, you're right. The world is it's the same size as it always was, but now that interconnection, the ability to communicate across the water, across continents is amazing. I wanted to maybe go a little bit more into the music side of things, and you mentioned this particular Pakistani musician. Is there much difference in the Pakistani style of music now? I mean, we know, not going back that far, it was all India, and then it separated. Are they playing a similar style now, or do they have more like a Muslim influences in their music than, say, in India?
Yeah, I guess the Qawwali music is has more sort of Islamic cultural elements to it. But I think
does it sound different? Like, can you hear that the sound difference? Or?
The singing is definitely on another level.
Right.
Look, I mean, in India we have Qawwali singers as well, don't get me wrong, and folk singers. But Pakistani music, specifically Qawwali music, is traditional folk music.
Wow.
So it's very raw. And if you listen to, a couple of the tracks and things like that, the way that they sing, and it's different type of energy.
Okay.
When you're sort of listening to it, you'll see that a lot of Western people, when they go to countries like Pakistan, they'll go there to experience the cultural diversity, but the music element to it, and they get lost in this music. It's very energizing, and it's amazing, to be honest, very amazing. But we also have those type of singers in India, but I would say that there is a difference, definitely, for sure.
It's interesting, isn't it, too? Like my heritage is, my background is Serbian. My father was Serbian, and so I've listened to a lot of, when I was young, Serbian folk music, which you listen to the Turkish folk music and the Gypsy folk music. It's very similar, and then you realise, in the case of Serbia in that era, they were under the Ottoman Empire influence for 500 years. So, of course, the music is going to, it's going to influence how they play. And let's face it, we're all human beings, and there's certain notes and sequences of notes that everyone will go, yeah, that sounds good, or no, that doesn't sound that good because of the way we're built.
Yep, musically trained.
Yeah, music. It's in us, and it's one of those. It really is a universal language, isn't it?
Definitely, I think one of my best friends, he's Bosnian, and every time he plays Bosnian music in the car, the similarities of music is very it's all there, right? It's all very similar stuff.
Because that would be that Islamic style of with the chord, the structure of their scales. There's a few scales that they use. So do you think that if you hadn't gone down the road, and we'll talk about what your qualifications are, but let's just say now you're a sparky and you're an engineer. If you hadn't gone down that road, do you think you would have maybe gone down the road of music and music production a bit more?
I think, look, I mean, it's definitely a big passion to go down that road. I think my parents were pretty conservative, right? Like coming from a small place in Fiji, I came to Australia when I was 2 years old. If I said to them, I'm going to be a music producer, they'd say, yeah, good on you. But I think, if there was more opportunities and I sort of looked and focused more on that, I think that would I have followed? I think I definitely would have. But my career path has sort of taken a few different roads, actually, I should say. I originally didn't actually even want to be in the energy industry. I was studying to become a licensed aviation maintenance engineer.
Right.
So I took
aeronautical engineering. Yeah.
So I had an apprenticeship at Qantas that I was doing, and then at that time the aviation industry was sort of on a downturn, and I said to my dad, I said, do you reckon I should finish up my aviation stuff? He goes, there's not much work, there's Jetstar coming and this and that, but there's not much scope there, right? As a LAME, they used to call it, Licensed Aviation Maintenance Engineer. I think it's still the same.
Wow.
Now.
Yeah, wow.
But then, I sort of, at that time, my dad said, look, just go the safe road, be a sparky, work with your uncle and become a sparky. And I said, all right, I'll do that. And then I did that. I finished my A grade. I mainly did sort of industrial commercial stuff, but mainly sort of robotics, PLC programming.
Yeah, wow.
That was sort of what I was learning with him, and it was pretty cool. I learned a lot with the companies that I worked with and the projects. It was actually pretty cool at that time. I got to learn a lot of things as you would, and I think from that I sort of said to myself, I hate waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and pulling cables like this, and being on site and dirty work and getting up in the scissor lift. I was scared of heights as well. So.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't have helped.
No, it's horrible. So every time I get up and running cables and in the ceiling and all that, and the C-section purlins and all that, it used to be a pain. And then I said to myself, I should go to uni and study a little bit more. And be electrical engineer. So I went to RMIT and finished up electrical engineering there, and I met a few sparky friends there also that came to study. That sort of opened up the avenue in a lot of ways, but I didn't really pursue that. at the start. So I always had a soft spot for sales, and I enjoyed talking to people. And
yeah, I was going to ask, because obviously you do enjoy talking to people. I'm going to ask the question I asked everyone. You think that that love of talking and love of people, is that a nurture thing or is that a nature thing? I know I always ask. Yeah, I always ask every guest this question.
I would say I'd say it's more of a nature thing.
Yep.
I think it's more of a nature thing. It's
is that from your mum or your dad?
Look, it's a bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah, wow.
But I would say my dad's very soft in that regard. So is my mum. But I would say that it's a nature thing. I think that, I don't know, it's hard to explain all of this stuff, but people who are into nature, are into music, they're generally quite soft-hearted people. I'm a bit soft in that regard, but I think that they have some people who it's been proven actually scientifically that people people that do music and that into nature and all this type of stuff, they actually have a good way of understanding people.
So they have more empathy.
They have more empathy.
I've heard this too.
Yeah, they do have more empathy. And I think that empathy is very important, especially when you're talking to a whole different audience in the sales area, especially because you're dealing with people that, sometimes they're financially driven, sometimes they're, sustainability driven. They have different agendas that they want to sort of target, right? It's just reading the audience, right? It's reading the audience. If you know some guy is a financial guy, you're not going to talk to him about an operational philosophy or start talking technical terms with him because he doesn't want to know about that. He wants to know about how this ROI is going to make sense to him.
Absolutely.
So but I think that, people, for me, I fell into the sales role and I really enjoyed it. And when I was working at AGL, I had the opportunity. Luke Kojic actually sort of emphasized for me to sort of go into the engineering area, and I explored that option, and it's something that I did like, but I didn't really enjoy it as much. And I think my skill set was and my enjoyment level was more from the sales focus point of view.
Okay.
Dealing with customers and providing solutions that mattered to them and that provided some level of impact to their business or the overall project objective that they were trying to reach.
We're going to definitely come back to this, but I wanted to sort of, how do I say it? Get on the magic carpet ride, time travel way back to when you were growing up.
Yep.
You're of Indian descent, growing up in Fiji. Can you tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like? What was it, growing up in, because there's a big Indian community in Fiji. They've been there for many, many years.
Yep.
But it's also that you've got the native Fijians, and it's an interesting cultural mix. Yeah,
it's an interesting dynamic, but definitely, I think I enjoyed my time every time I used to go back to Fiji. So I came to Australia when I was sort of 2 years old, and at that time there probably wasn't many people from Fiji in Australia at that time, and we were living in Glen Iris at that time. And there definitely wasn't many Fijians in
I know Glen Iris, at
that time. But it was good going back because I was born on a farm in Fiji. My grandfather's a family farm which is in the Western Division of Fiji, and he had a few businesses and things like that as well. But I think growing on the farm, you sort of see the opportunities here in Australia. Every time we'd go back to Fiji, we'd sort of realise how grateful we were to be in a country like Australia.
Right.
Because there was so much opportunity, right? So much opportunity even as a kid. You had opportunity to play sports and do all these activities, which normally, Fiji, you probably wouldn't be doing those sort of things, right? And it made you appreciate also where you're from, but also where you are now.
So it sounds like you've gone back quite a few times. So Fiji is still in your heart.
Definitely. I mean, it's always going to be in my heart.
Yeah,
it's always in my heart. I think for me, personally, when the experience going into the renewable sector was because of my homeland.
Right. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah. So when I was very little, we used to go on boat rides and things like that to a lot of the islands in Fiji and things like that. And growing up now, I've gone back in recent times and some of those islands are actually underwater completely. Global warming is a real thing. And the Pacific Islands has been, significantly impacted from global warming, like much of the other island countries. For me, when I used to go back and see those places just completely underwater, it makes you realize that global warming is a serious issue. Though we can't directly do anything to stop the ice caps from melting, but I feel like working in the renewable industry gives me something good to feel about, that I'm actually helping lessen that impact.
Is this something that do you go back like once a year or once every 2 years or something like that?
I sort of go back once every year.
So how old were you when you started becoming aware? Wow, like there is this, encroaching of the water. Islands are going underwater, and it's due to what's going on. And
I could see the impact sort of happening when I was in my sort of early to mid 20s, where that ramp rate was actually going up a lot more. And you'd see people talking about these things and taking these things pretty serious. And there was small levels of impact. And that obviously increased through the years, and the awareness became more. So people started, doing things with solar panels, installing solar. They're looking at ways how to operate islanded with small microgrid type solutions.
Right.
Diesel gensets
would have been a lot of SMA stuff in the early days, probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't really across it during that time, but I'm guessing there would have been a lot of SMA. But there was a lot of generator stuff happening back then, because there's diesel fuel's easy accessible.
But expensive though, get it over to any of the Pacific Islands. They must have been paying a lot per litre.
Definitely. That was very expensive, and that's why sugarcane is a big business in Fiji. So it's one of the larger countries that provide raw sugar.
Wow.
And as a bio waste product, they looked at
ethanol.
Ethanol.
Yeah, right.
So that was with that coming into play, it sort of brought up more sustainability things that they can look at, long-term objectives on bioethanol, diesel waste.
Yep.
How do they use that?
Coconut oil. I know there's systems running on coconut oil as well. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So, and that's where the generators were always there as a base load. Being a tropical island, you always get affected by weather conditions and cyclones and all this type of stuff. So generators were always going to be in the mix. But then with technology expanding, they got into solar and large scale battery systems now, where they're able to manage parts of the island or certain businesses with microgrid solutions.
And a lot of schools too are moving towards the solar.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I can imagine too that structurally the mounting for these solar panels must be like double strength compared to Australia, compared to the southern parts of Australia, because there's the cyclone rating, cyclones up there.
Yeah, well, using cyclone, when you obviously do a structural assessment, you have to use cyclone graded screws and all this other stuff to accommodate for those type of weather conditions, which are pretty crazy over in Fiji when the cyclones happen. So a lot of the infrastructure there, even buildings and stuff, they're not designed to really cope with all the stuff that happens weather-wise. But it's good to see that they have taken the sustainability flag and flown it quite high in Fiji. There's a lot of businesses that are doing some great work. The CBS and a few other companies there that are doing great work in the Pacific Islands and helping the growth of sustainability and renewable energy assets in those islands. So
do they have much in the way of wind at all, or is it more solar?
It's more solar and battery type solutions there, but I'm not sure about the wind side of things. I don't think that they're doing a lot of wind projects. Obviously, the wind projects are quite expensive, infrastructure-wise, to do the cabling and everything else. So maybe there might be some foreign investment in the future. Never know. So
solar's more reliable. I mean, like the saying used to be, or we used to say, is the only thing that moves is the electrons, bumping each other. Whereas wind turbines, it's that you've got this mechanical situation and things wear out.
They do.
Maintenance is a key, and
maintenance.
The tropics would be pretty harsh on equipment anyway.
Very corrosive. Yeah, very corrosive. So, and wind turbines are great, but with that battery storage, they don't really make that much sense in that situation. So
that's a really good point, actually.
Yeah.
It's this relationship between producing the energy, storing it and using it, or using it and then storing it, depending on which is a priority. All right, so you're regularly going back to Fiji. You're maintaining that cultural, where you came from. You can speak, a bit of Fijian, the native Fijian, and of course the Hindi.
Just a little bit.
The Hindi dialect, the Fijian dialect.
Yeah.
And you've gone to RMIT.
Yeah.
What's happened? What's happened after RMIT? What was your first job after RMIT?
My first job, I actually started at a company called CPM, and they were doing sort of SME contracts for energy and gas.
Sorry, what kind of contracts?
SME, so
what's
SME,
that?
SME, so small market sort of.
Oh,
yeah, small market.
An acronym, I didn't know that one. Yeah, okay.
You're more used to the larger scale.
No, I just didn't know. Well, now I do. As we say,
small to medium enterprise.
As we were saying off camera, you're learning every day.
Of course, 100%. Yep. So small to medium enterprise, energy and gas contracts, and they generally come with like a base rate price, and then you've got a discount that's attached with that. So I was doing that, and I really enjoyed it, and liked talking to business owners about their energy. And I think 3 months within that job, I sort of got promoted to a sort of managerial post there, and I did that for a while, and I really enjoyed it. And then another opportunity came up when I sort of got into the energy industry. I was working at Alinta Energy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Under the Service Works banner, and quite similar sort of things. But I was looking after not only the SME, but also the C&I side of things as well, C&I customers. Electricity and gas again, retaining customers, acquiring, all of that type of thing. And I really enjoyed the customer aspect, talking to the clients, understanding what mattered to them, and generally it'd be price, right? But there was other things as well.
Yeah, of course. There's always other stuff.
There's always other stuff. So for some of these owners, it was actually understanding the operational side of things, how they're going to operate their sites to become more efficient. And that's where I started learning more about that when I went to AGL. AGL as a business was, very, very experienced. They have experts in all different areas. And the good thing is they have knowledge transfer sessions, right? So you can go and learn about different areas of the business and what they do. You can sort of get that support for your own learning and things like that. And when I started learning about the C&I, the C&I industry properly on data consumption, how do you read through interval data, how do you calculate power factor, based on the site consumption and all these other little details that come into it. It was very interesting because, you started understanding more about how customers use their power and what they want to do with that. How do they want to understand their bill and what do they do next? So sometimes you'd have a customer where they've got a power factor rating of 0.8, for example. And that's a clear sign that there's some power factor issues there, potential harmonic issues there as well. And the customer would say, okay, I've got a really bad power factor at this site. How about I just, put a power factor correction unit in? Will that sort of fix the issue? It'll probably make it a little bit better, but it really won't fix the issue. So then you're talking to a facilities guy who's managing the site, right? And then he might be a sparky as well, or he'll put you through to a sparky on site, and then you'll tell him that, okay, there's some power factor issues on site. Have you started actually looking at the equipment on site, the loads that are there, the assets that you have on site? If you've got a generator, if you've got direct online motors and things like that, understanding where the issues are coming from. There might be some underlying issues on the site that are causing these issues. they'd go through a number of things and they'd go do a checklist and things like that. They'd rectify a few things and they go, oh, we think, this was the issue. We've resolved it now. Then they'd come back to you and you'd request the network to do a demand reset, for example. And this is...
Can you explain what a demand reset is?
Yeah, so if you look on your energy bill, you've got under the network charges a kVA demand component.
Yep.
So the demand is calculated on a sort of monthly basis, right? And it's an average of what the highest demand was for the month. So, you might come in one day and turn on a couple of lights and you get a little spike like this, and then you've then turned on a 3-phase lathe and bang, and a welding machine, and you've got a sudden spike in your demand.
First thing in the morning, someone comes in and he goes click, 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 and there's 20 3-phase induction motors going boom, boom, boom.
Exactly right, and then you've got a big spike, and you get calculated based on that average, right?
Yeah, right.
For the month, so the highest average.
Yep.
So that's where the spike happens, and I guess having a good power factor on site and managing your assets accordingly will help stabilize all of those things. So if you've got a good power factor rating, that's one step. The other step is, potentially soft starting,
variable speed drives,
VSDs, all of that thing, all of those things will sort of help keep a stabilized demand. And then for a permanent type solution,
So you're basically having conversations about how people approach things and do things on their site, potential ways of improving their processes and procedures as well.
Yeah, so wow. I mean, it did open up the doors in a lot of ways at AGL to have those in-depth conversations with these customers, because the price of electricity was going up at those times, and there was a lot of government decisions made and influences at that time. And obviously energy is a commodity, gets traded on a 5-minute interval.
Yep.
No one has any input in that. But at that time, the cost of energy was rising at that time. And people started really pulling back and understanding how they're using power at the site, what they're doing, how they could do things better, looking at lighting upgrades and things like that for their site, power factor correction units, but also understanding the power quality issues on their site, which is even more important. I think having the electrical background, it did give me...
I was going to say,
you'd be able to talk the talk.
You'd be able to talk the talk from a practical perspective as well as from an engineering perspective. I'll rephrase that. Because you've got both... an electrical background as in being an A grade, and you're an engineer, you can sort of cover a lot more bases than, say, just a normal engineer.
Definitely, but I think, you're definitely right in saying that, but I think it's also judging the person that you're talking to, right? Because sometimes we're not always talking to someone who's got that technical, in-depth knowledge. But even if they don't, it's then as a salesperson, how do you... give that information to someone who's non-technical. Make them understand that information.
That's a skill in itself.
It is, yeah, because not everyone's, even us, we're learning on a daily basis, right? So you never become a full expert, but the thing is, you have to have the ability as a salesperson to talk to different people with different skill sets, and make an impact in those conversations. And
you have to do that quickly, don't you? You have to be able to work out who people are fairly quickly, because sometimes you've only got one chance.
That's true. Yeah, that is very true. And it's quite hard and challenging. I think that's the thing that I like most about it, is the challenging aspect, because you're never talking to one type of person, so you've got a different number of challenges when you're sort of engaging in these conversations. And you're right, sometimes you have a small window to make an impact, and it has to be the right thing that it's impactful for that person. Either it be sustainability goals or technical requirements, or potential return on investments. what makes financial sense for that person to make that decision. So there's a number of things that go into it. But I think what's interesting in my role now where I'm at Azzo is that we're sort of piecing a lot of those pieces together for the customer from a basic point of view. I didn't even talk about where I'm at now.
No, we'll get there.
So,
I just want to try to work out like just this timeline. So you're at AGL. It sounds like you're doing some pretty interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was your next job after AGL?
So after AGL, I went to ComApp. So ComApp was historically known as a generator controls type company, but they don't just do that.
No, they don't.
They don't just do that. So they specialize in sort of hybrid microgrid type solutions as well. And I was very lucky. I had sort of a mentor at ComApp at that time, Les Cuttager, and he's a very very fun guy to work with actually. So he was my boss, and he sort of taught me a lot of things within the microgrid industry, but also in the generator space. I'd been around generators, but not directly working with generator controls. And it was interesting to learn about microgrid applications that required standby generators, critical infrastructure, hospitals and that type of thing. And how they operate in these sort of scenarios was very interesting to sort of learn all of that stuff. And Les was very helpful teaching me a few things. I remember the first day that I went and saw him at the office, he put a single line diagram up in front of me and, with float switches and all this other stuff. And he asked me, what is this? I said, this is a pretty interesting drawing. There's a lot of things going on. And I had to explain the circuit to him, and he goes, you know what you're talking about. We'll take you on board. And then
that was the test, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the test.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that people do that type of stuff, but they do. But it was really good to learn about generator controls and communications point of view. That's where I really started my learning foundation in the engineering space, because then I started learning about different communications protocols, how things talk to each other, how do you get information out of another device, how do you make those devices work together, which controller's the Modbus master, which one's got redundancies and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's quite complex. But sort of learning all the different applications and strategies, it helped me in my career path, definitely with a lot of things that I'm doing now. But ComApp do a lot of things. They do, Mains Pro. Anyone who's in the solar industry would know the Mains Pro, Intelli Pro, protection relays.
We use them in our grid safe boards. I can't say secondary protection boards because of the change in AS 4777.1 2024. It's now known as interface protection. I've got to get that right. But we're well aware of the quality of that product, and it's a bit of an industry standard, that relay,
definitely,
or that the Mains Pro relay. So
I think that's where I met yourself and
Jayesh. That's exactly right. Through at the old office in Abbotsford. Yep. I think so. You're at AGL. You're doing, as I said, it sounds like some pretty interesting, challenging stuff. Not only do you have to know your stuff technically, but you have to know a few. You mentioned finance. You have to know the engineering side of things. You have to know comms,
wholesale pricing, and
all that as
understand
well. and understand people as well. Because there's not too many people can do that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hard task, I guess. Everyone's good at having conversations, but then when you start delving into different types of people and what's important to them, the decision makers within businesses, the influencers,
unspoken concerns, pain points, all those things,
all of that stuff, and people have a lot of things that they want to talk about. And you have to hear it from them. My bills are going up, and I'm getting all these massive bills. What do I do? And you then have to talk reality, which is data, right? So data is something that's real, right? So when you look at the data, you're talking facts. You're talking about this is what you're using. How do we maybe change the way that you operate? Maybe use a bit of off-peak power, or change your operational envelopes on site.
So the accuracy and the collection of that data is incredibly important, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So data collection is very important, but also understanding that data is very important, right?
Yes.
From C&I customers, some of the larger side of businesses, they have their own, energy procurement teams who will look at that data, analyze it, and provide some commentary around that. But the smaller businesses in the C&I space, they don't have someone in that space looking at that. They might have an energy consultant that they've spoken to once every 2 years who's given a bit of insight, but there's no one really looking at how they use that power. So it's very important for them, when I say them, the customer, the client, to really understand what they're doing at their site, how they're consuming power, what are the next steps for them? Because every business nowadays, has a renewable sustainability energy target or goal attached to their business, and that itself is quite interesting, because then it drives a different conversation. Is it about sustainability? Is it about return on investment? Is it about how much money they have to spend? Or can they look at a PPA type arrangement? So there's a number of conversations.
Wow.
Come on to the back of that.
You're at Azzo. What is Azzo? What do they do? And how did you get there?
Sure. So Azzo is an integrator. So they integrate all types of third-party hardware together. And then further to that, we actually look at after the control philosophy. So the hardware for reporting, monitoring, and then controls. And Azzo do a great job of all of that. They also have a very agnostic way to market for end clients in the VPP market orchestration space.
And VPP meaning?
Virtual power plant. So pretty much, someone who's looking after the orchestration piece. So they'll be with the hardware stack. So you've got the edge controller on site. Generally speaking, what happens is other orchestrators out in the market or VPP providers, they will have their own sort of gateway on site, and that gateway allows them to do the trading enablement. Now, what happens is clients want to have the power in their own hands, right? So
as we all do.
Yes, we all do, right? We want to go out, do a bit of shopping and see what else is out there, right?
Absolutely.
And if you do get a better offering in regards to your value stack, right? So, demand response, FCAS, wholesale.
I think we'll have to expand later on those terms, just for the people who are listening going,
Sure.
What the heck are we talking about?
What language is this guy talking?
That's it.
No, but so essentially what simple format, if a client was to go out and get a better value stack offering, they necessarily can't always just move to a different VPP provider or orchestrator in the market.
Why? Because they're locked in or something, or?
Yeah, well, they've got that gateway, right? And that gateway is the sort of the intermediary to allow them to do that trading,
Which is hardware.
Which is hardware,
yes.
Correct. Which is hardware. And what happens is if they want to move to another provider, they might have to take that piece of kit out and put another gateway in, and then reconfiguration.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit of engineering required there as well.
So a lot of money in some cases?
Some cases, yes, but some cases, no. Sometimes that hardware can be provided as a cheap item, or as a part of that value stack, and you pay it off over time, or something along those lines.
Right.
Depending on who's offering what out there, and that I'm not too sure of either.
Yep, gotcha.
But there's a lot of different people out there that do the orchestration piece now, and the clients want to have the power themselves to make the decision on who they go to for that part, depending on what they're getting in regards to return on investment. I guess the way we sort of go about it is we've got an agnostic approach to that. So the hardware kit stays as is.
Right.
The edge kit we're talking about,
Yeah.
that stays as is.
Why is it called an edge kit?
I don't know. Maybe it's just a square box. I don't know.
Great answer. Love it. No.
No, it's just I think edge kit is just what it's called.
Okay,
from
gotcha.
a market perspective. I'm not sure why
Right.
it's called that. Maybe they call, a lot of people refer it to like a black box or something along those lines, but it's pretty much the hardware enable piece that allows for the market orchestration piece. So I guess from an agnostic point of view, we have got our own edge kit. And the good thing is if you do want to move to another orchestrator or VPP provider out in the market, we don't have to change the edge kit. We leave the edge kit as it is.
Oh, okay.
And we generally do a cloud-to-cloud integration via API.
Right.
And we can sort of get the set points from the orchestrator and put that into the control. And then we have our own layer of control that we put into the PLC as well, which is more of a redundancy point of view. So
Plan B.
Yeah, plan B. So if there's a blackguard or an outage or something along those lines, we can sort of put that in the controller, that control logic, which will allow for the trading to still occur when there's an outage, pretty much.
And the orchestrators, are you allowed to say who they are? I mean, like,
there's a number of
do you have a preferred orchestrator, or you're quite agnostic there?
We're very agnostic, so we don't really tell the customer who to go to as such. They can sort of do their own market research in that regard. But there's a number of retailers that are doing it.
Okay.
Tier 1 retailers that are doing it. There's a whole heap of people that are doing it. But I guess it comes down to doing the homework and seeing, weighing out the financial modelling essentially, because that's what it gets down to.
So you've got a customer who's looking to trade their energy. Invariably, it's going to be energy storage energy.
Yeah.
In 99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And they're looking to go, or what's my best value proposition? What are the offerings out there? And then once they've selected that, then they come to you and go, can you please integrate all of this into a system? Is that it?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So we've had a new acquisition at Azzo recently. So we've just acquired Greenview, which is Jonathan Dyson, who's a quite experienced consultant. He's been out in the industry for a very long time. So we've actually got a consultative arm of the business now as well. So we can provide consultative advice, mainly around the compliance aspect as well, which is quite a big piece of the component. I won't delve into that too much on this podcast, but that's also
a lot of detail there.
It's a lot of detail there. So there's a whole section of compliance that's required in these type of projects. From an early design perspective, it's good to get on top of those things. And a lot of people, they don't realize the complexities of these type of projects, as we were talking about offline. It's not as easy as just go buy a whole heap of hardware and hope for the best.
And that does happen though, doesn't it? People,
it's very common. Yeah, it does happen.
You were saying off camera, like this happens quite a bit, and
it does. Yeah, it does.
It can be an expensive lesson.
It definitely, and I think communications is a big oversight for a lot of people. They don't really get into the nitty gritty of it. And it's all good and well to buy different inverters and different components, but they all need to talk together. And that's where the communications point comes into play, right? You've got Modbus TCP, RS485, all these different other communications protocols. And then you need to bring that together and then able to talk, able to communicate, and then send control signals based on your functional requirements of the site. So
all within an acceptable time period too.
That as well. You've got things like FCAS, which is
Yeah, can you explain what FCAS is? Just, basically, and
Yeah.
what kinds of, because I believe there's more than one kind of FCAS out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So frequency auxiliary services, pretty much with FCAS, FCAS is pretty much based on frequency, right? The 50 hertz cycle that we have, maintaining the 50 hertz cycle, and responding to irregularities that happen, irregular moments that happen on the frequency shifts and things like that. So there's different response rates for FCAS.
Right. This is what I don't fully understand, because I always thought it was just FCAS with FCAS, but there's different levels of response. Yeah. So please. Yeah. I want to hear this personally a lot. Yeah.
Yep. So you've got pretty much very fast FCAS.
Right.
So that itself is, there's not a lot of people participating in that market.
Right.
So you need very fast metering that can capture the response time and also report that response time.
Gotcha.
So generally speaking, 50 millisecond, I think, response rate. So
Yeah. Right.
I could be wrong. I think 50 millisecond is the very fast FCAS.
Wow. That's fast.
Yeah, it's very fast. Literally. But so you need the adequate metering for that, and you have to also have the adequate reporting aspect to that. So that's what Azzo does very well. We do the metering part. We also do the logging part or the reporting part.
So this is like a dashboard we're talking about?
It's a dashboard that provides the reporting analysis to AMO. So you get paid for the participation. End of the day, if you're participating in these markets and you don't have the data to report on your participation, you're not getting paid for it. So
right.
It's very important. And then to be also all the testing that's required, right? But so there's a level of testing that gets done, and you pretty much get a green tick, or you get told that you didn't meet the response times.
Wow.
So, and that brings up a whole heap of other conversations, right? And sometimes we deal with these type of questions that where someone's bought $1 million battery or something along those lines, and they want to participate in certain markets and things like that, and they just haven't been given that green light. So,
whoa,
they have an asset sitting on site that's not now making their money, and they really need to get onto it fast. But there's no shortcuts, right? Things need to be done properly. So that's why the response time capturement is very important, and then able to report on that data capture is very important.
Is this why you've got a consultation arm as well?
For
that kind of stuff.
Correct. For that and to meet the compliance objectives that sit within that FCAS reporting as well. So at Azzo we do also provide the mass compliance for FCAS as well.
So how does Azzo how do they offer this mass compliance aspect, which I'm still trying to get my head around? Yeah.
Sure. So Azzo has a SaaS sort of offering, so a software as a service, and a part of that is the mass compliance aspect.
Right.
And we provide the reporting for the mass compliance. So that pretty much confirms all the reporting, data validation point of view. So pretty much the customer gets paid.
Right.
And also they meet the compliance objectives that sit under that.
You must be being flooded with stuff. I mean, every man and his dog is trying to get onto the arbitrage FCAS bandwagon.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point that you've sort of raised. I guess yes, from the reporting part, it's a very, very important aspect of what we do. The FCAS part, for Victoria, it's probably the people that got in there quite early in the pieces. I think that they're doing well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the people coming into that market now in Victoria specifically, it's probably not as lucrative as some of the other states and things like that.
Okay. But arbitrage, you do the arbitrage as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Which just seems to be at this point in time more lucrative than FCAS?
Yeah, it is. It's a very lucrative market. So the arbitrage market is very, very good. You've got wholesale, obviously demand response as well. I think a lot of the larger customers, they all have sort of HVAC systems for heating and cooling and things like that. We can sort of adjust the ramp rate on those HVAC systems. If we can talk to the BMS system on site, we can adjust the ramp rate on those chillers and coolers.
And the BMS is not a battery management system, it's a building management system.
Correct, yeah. There are a lot of people that do get confused with the both.
Yeah.
So that's a building management system, which we control the HVAC chillers on site, so we can do a level of demand response doing load curtailment using the chillers. So that's one way of customers participating in demand response. Obviously, there's other ways as well to participate in different types of markets. But yeah, we have a number of different scenarios that we work with clients based on their functional requirements and how they foresee their sites working. In some cases, they sort of come to us and say, hey, look, we're looking to get XYZ hardware. How do we make all this stuff work? Like there's, it's a lot of thinking process, right? Because you're sort of really understanding how much power the site requires. As in, if they're doing self-consumption, right?
Yes.
So they're consuming a level of power themselves, and then they want to participate in programs as well.
Yes, yeah.
They really need to understand, okay, how much power do I need at any given point of time? How much reserve power do I have?
Yes.
Where I can do this trading part, and how do I meet the compliance objectives? And what happens when the grid goes out, right? What happens then? What's the level of redundancy?
Yep.
Right. So
It's a really good point. It must be even more complicated if people are doing what you said and also going, I want to do FCAS and arbitrage.
Exactly right. There's another level of complexity that comes into that because, batteries have a life. Right?
They do.
They're like your mobile phone, right? You charge it 5 times and the next minute it's blowing up. Yep. No.
Oh, that was a funny one. No, but you're right. It's like every time, when you talk to people who don't really understand this, I always say, look, you turn on a light globe and every time you turn it on, it's a little less bright because it has a certain lifespan.
Degradation. It's a real
degradation.
It's a real thing, and I guess batteries themselves, like most batteries have a state of charge, discharge rate that they can do, right?
Absolutely.
So they can only be discharged in some circumstances, 1 to 1.5 cycles per day. So if you're discharging your battery 3 or 4 times a day, then you're not meeting the performance warranties of the battery.
Absolutely.
And then, then you've got a whole heap of other problems to deal with. So,
That's a really good point. I'll tell you what, and this is where it's slightly off subject. Well, it's not. This is where and you'll probably see it happening a lot pretty soon. I'm hoping because I find them interesting. Flywheels. Kinetic energy storage systems, you can discharge them all day, every day, multiple times. There is no degradation at all. Take them down 100%. Doesn't matter. Last 25, 30 years, which has decided advantages over a chemical battery. And I see happening very soon, and there's a couple out there. It's in its infancy of a combination of a lithium or a chemical battery energy storage component and a mechanical battery storage component, and they're just taking turns. But we're getting nitty gritty. But it seems like the customers at the end of the day, they want to maximise their capital expenditure on these products and enter into this market, this speculative market where things are going all over the place. So can you explain what arbitrage actually is to people who don't know? Because we're using these terms we sort of know, but
energy arbitrage can mean many things to different people, right? So, and I say that respectfully because the thing is, energy arbitrage may mean that, some people might understand energy arbitrage as shifting the way that they use power. So energy arbitrage, instead of using my power during the daytime, I will adjust and shift my way that I use power to a different time allocation during the afternoon or day, or operationally adjusting hours on how they're using power. That may be a form of energy arbitrage. The other form of energy arbitrage may be load curtailment, excessive solar, curtailing load.
Right.
That's another form of energy arbitrage.
Okay. Well, then, see, I always thought, I just assumed it was all about the buying and selling of energy based on its price.
That is another form of energy arbitrage, which is the wholesale demand, wholesale component.
Wow.
So the wholesale component, as you know or may not know, for anyone out there, the energy markets trade on a 5-minute interval. So energy is obviously a commodity, can be bought and sold by anyone. It's on the ASX. So buying and selling, power is a wholesale demand response component. So there are a lot of VPP programs out there that currently sort of offer wholesale demand response. That's what people call it.
Yeah,
but some people call it energy arbitrage, right?
Yes.
So it's
right.
So the acronyms that are out there are, sometimes people use different acronyms. They might be similar things, but that's why you sort of ask them. Like you mentioned a great point before. You said BMS, building management system.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people might just go, that's a battery management system he's talking about.
Yeah.
But it's not,
Not in this case. We were talking about a building. Yeah.
So,
wow. So I've learned something. That is, So there's multiple forms of arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's multiple ways of doing arbitrage.
Ways of doing arbitrage.
Yeah.
And there's multiple FCAS models as well.
Well, FCAS, there's different speeds of FCAS. Different response times for FCAS. So you've got very fast FCAS.
Yep.
You've got,
which not too many people you mentioned are doing this at the moment. The very fast stuff.
So like a number of hardware layers, right? So sometimes people will go out, principals or clients. They'll go out and buy a battery, right? They'll go about doing a bit of research and buying a battery. This is perfect, it's 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour battery, and great. And the battery, it's got its own battery management system. Right?
I'm laughing. Yeah, BMS. That's it.
BMS, not the other BMS.
Not the other one, yeah.
But it's got a BMS. Now, that BMS is designed to do a couple of things. Talk to the inverter, the PCS, and also the battery cells. So
absolutely
understanding how to control the state of the charge of the battery.
Absolutely, because you're talking about multiple cells here, aren't you?
Yeah. Now, that itself isn't an energy management system. That BMS is designed for the battery stack.
Yes.
Generally.
To optimize it to optimize its health.
Yeah. To ensure the battery is doing what it should do.
Should do, yeah.
As a standalone unit. To then incorporate that into an overall site where, you've got a solar system, you've got a generator, you still need an overarching energy management system.
Right.
Which controls the state of the charge of the battery, but also controls what's actually happening from the solar, understand what's happening from the solar penetration point of view. And then if there isn't enough sun, the generator, what's the generator doing?
Yeah.
Do we start the generator up to charge the battery or what do we do, right? And then what happens from a grid point of view when there's no grid? How do you make the site operate islanded? That's another consideration. So there's so many different elements that go into all of this stuff, and that all comes down to the design strategy and functional. I had a bit of a moment there. Functional operational envelopes, how the site is designed to operate, pretty much. And it all comes down to, I guess, the consultant who's maybe looking at this spec, or the engineer that you're talking to help design that system according to what you require, how you foresee the site working. And it can be complex.
Oh, it is. Look,
It can be
straight
very
away, my
complex.
head's reeling. So you need a system that actually can talk to the existing battery management system, the batteries. Then this same system has to work out the solar. It has to work out the grid, the voltage, the frequency. Has to work out if there's a gen set. And then there's all these commands, if this happens, that based on what they want to do with this system.
Exactly.
Service the loads on the site, maybe a bit of FCAS,
Yeah.
maybe some energy arbitrage as well. It is really complicated.
Very complicated. And, there's then a number of underlying factors in each of these different asset hardware components as well, right? You've got a generator on site. You can't just start the generator up if there's no fuel.
Absolutely.
So how do you know that? You need to able to talk to the generator controller to
And you have
establish all of this stuff.
Absolutely. And in those big 1500 RPM water-cooled 4-pole gen sets, you don't start up and shift the load. You have to. There's a warm-up time.
Correct,
There's a
yeah.
warm-down time.
Correct.
There's a generator exercise control if they haven't been started for a while.
Yeah.
So
And they have to run at 1500 RPM.
So
to
this is
run
like some
optimal.
master controller that
Yeah.
basically it's for one of another expression, it's God.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So overseeing from a site point of view, completely assets, how they actually work to make an orchestra. It's like we talked about music before, right?
That's
the
why
music part
yes.
is a good way to sum it up, because you've got the bass as the bass load instrument, but then you've got all these other instruments that come into that mix.
Bass load instrument, very good.
Bass load instrument.
That's very
The bass load instrument.
Wow, that's
But yeah, it's a combination of different instruments that make up the orchestra, right? So exactly like what we're sort of talking about now, where it's not just one asset, you've got a number of assets and they're doing a number of different things. And then you're working over the top of that and understanding how the site is actually operating. And then you providing a level of reporting on that as well. So you need to report on that, right? Because, let's say if you've got multiple generators in the mix,
yes.
you want to do things like runtime equalization where they're operating at similar sort of hours of operation.
Absolutely.
So that way you
from a
service
maintenance perspective, of course.
Yeah, from a maintenance perspective, and then that's getting serviced on time to both at the same time, and then you're having to look after other aspects as the battery. What's the battery health looking like? Are you discharging the battery 1 to 1.5 times a day, or is it being done more? I mean, you potentially could discharge a battery 3 times, a day. But let's say you're doing it less often.
And then you're degrading the battery. Well, again, if you're doing it less often, you might not be degrading the battery more quickly, but you may be compromising the warranty of the battery because it says, hey, you can only discharge, this is a maximum C rate that you can discharge the battery at.
Exactly right. So that's where these conversations from, manufacturers, you're talking to the different partners or manufacturers out in the industry to know all this type of information. And then once you've gathered all this information, then you're working at how do I actually make this operate as the site requires, meeting all these performance metrics and able to provide reporting on the back of all of this. So it's a lot to take in. And imagine someone who's, got $2 million to spend and they're trusting someone to make all these right decisions for them.
They better trust the right people. And
there's a number of experts in our field, and everyone is ever so learning as well, because hardware is getting better. There's more pieces of hardware coming into play. Now you've got vehicle to grid, for example. So that changes things a lot as well.
What about in better networks and virtual power plants? Is that something?
That's something that we do as well.
Yeah, right.
So that's also another thing. Embedded network. We haven't even touched on embedded networks.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because we're going to circle back to. There's so much, right? My brain's actually pulsing in a way it shouldn't at the moment because I'm trying to absorb it all. But I'd like to talk a little bit about embedded networks, and the first off the bat is just to explain people who are listening what that actually means, and how can there be like a virtual power plant scenario within an embedded network, like a retirement village or whatever, either having one large battery or every house, every 100 houses, the houses that they say there's 100 residents, they all have a battery, or they have one big battery or whatever. I'm saying too much. Let's get back to the beginning.
You're explaining the whole lot.
Yeah, but what's an embedded network actually? What defines an embedded network? Yeah.
So what defines an embedded network is generally you've got a gate meter, for example, at a site.
Yep.
And let's say it is a retirement village, for example.
Yep.
There'll be a gate meter at that site, and then which will be the parent meter, and then you've got child meters that sit under that. So the child meters will be per each retirement village, for example.
Each house on the
each house within that facility.
Yep.
So now, I guess what will happen? Let's say if the embedded network or the facility decides to buy a battery. Generally speaking, they won't have the battery behind the child meter, they'll have it behind the parent meter, which is the gate meter, right?
Yes.
So at the gate meter, they'll have the battery.
Yep.
Now, the investment will be done by, let's say, whoever owns that retirement village, for example.
Yes.
And they'll say, hey, we've got this battery that we want everyone to invest into. And a part of this is going to be part of the embedded network, and everyone will have, like a community battery at the site that they can use. And they'll size the battery accordingly to, the load required. Oh, the loads on site, for example.
Yep.
And then the residents will obviously input towards that community battery, and they'll then distribute the power of that battery through the child meters on site.
Yep.
Now, that is also a complex solution itself, right? Because you have to have the right metering solutions to understand all the data first, right? From a gate meter and also a child meter point of view. And then distributing that power equally as well. So, and understanding, I guess, in some cases where there's reserve and things like that, if that battery is going to be used for market participation, who receives the benefits of for that participation point of view, and how is that distributed equally? And there's a number of complexities that come into that as well. So, if the community's inputted into the battery, they would want to see some benefit.
Absolutely, they would. I mean, and what do you with these particular scenarios? Are you seeing that particular model, or are you seeing a model where it's a retirement village and there's a bit of spare land? The owner of the village goes, "Hey, I'm putting in a 3 megawatt hour battery." The residents are not going to do. They're not even going to be benefiting from it at all. I'm just going to use this bit of area and I'm going to trade on the market. That would change. That would be a different kind of model completely.
Correct. Yeah.
Or they say, we'll just take a little bit of your solar, a little bit of it, but you won't benefit from the battery, but we'll pay you for the solar. And is
that is also something that happens. And there's a number. That's what I mean. It's quite complex, right? When you start getting into the nitty gritties on how it actually
the variables,
the dynamics of how you want it to operate it gets quite complex, and there's a lot of things to understand, and it comes down to envisionment, right? People have a different way of envisioning how they want their site to operate.
Yes,
and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not so great. But how do you determine all of that, right?
How do you determine
all of that? So the only way you really can determine it is by understanding how the site operates. Is it a site that you need some reserve capacity, and if so, that comes down to a modelling point of view. How is the site modelled? to operate, how is the site modeled for return on investment? Because, a guy who's sitting in finance doesn't necessarily want to know on everything on how the site actually operates.
What's the IRR? What's the ROI? What's the net present value?
Yeah.
All that.
So he's looking at those figures, right? Whereas, a facilities manager is actually looking at, okay, this is something that I need to be mindful of. I need to watch out for, when we're exporting, when we're not exporting, how's the battery being storing charge, are the cells healthy? He needs to know all of that information. And some level of the control logic, the PLC logic on site. Even though he might be not doing or not doing that programming element, he might be doing levels of maintenance on site. So he needs to know how to isolate certain circuits and things like that, and he needs to know how to reset and how to look at all that information as well.
I'm mute at the moment because my head is spinning.
Mine too. Believe me, there's a lot.
So if you, what would your recommendation be to a customer who is looking at, let's say they are a retirement village, or anyone wanting to trade energy or have the ability to do frequency control ancillary services, FCAS stuff? What's the first step? What would be the suggestion from your perspective and Azzo's perspective? What's the first step?
The first step is, okay, I mean, the place that you've bought, let's say, or looking to buy, what are the regulations for that area? What network does it sit in under, for example?
And they vary the regulations for the...
Well, I guess there's a number of... then you've got also a number of requirements based on the network provider in the area, right?
Right.
So they want to have some level of control potentially over that asset. Right? So, SCADA comes into play, for example, and you need a level, the network needs a level of control to ensure that, in an emergency situation, or should they need to, how do they go about isolating your site?
And what financial implication may that have for the customer?
Well, a number of financial implications.
That's what it has to be factored in, doesn't it?
Yeah, that has to be factored in. And I mean, sometimes there's times where the network will call upon these type of people to come and assist with issues on the grid, but sometimes they become the issue.
Oh.
Because, there's more and more assets coming online, and that also causes a lot of issues with, the frequency, the 50 hertz cycle, maintaining that, excessive solar, Well,
let's say that they've decided on a certain size battery.
Yep.
They've gone through all the paperwork.
They've gone through the grid connection approval.
All of that. Yep. And the DSP said, that's fine. We'll accept that 4.9999 megawatt hour battery.
The sweet spot.
That's exactly. And on the system. And so the customer goes, okay, great. We got some costings on the battery. And then they come to you.
Yep.
Maybe that's an easier,
generally what happens, sorry, I got a little bit off track there, but generally what happens is the customer will acquire the land, they've spoken to the network, they'll engage maybe a consultant who would provide some levels of sort of engagement on how they would want the site to operate, what assets on site. They potentially go through a connection request at that time, and that process takes a bit of time. In that process, they'll get in touch with us and say, hey, we've got XYZ hardware. We've engaged this consultant to help us structure the framework on how we foresee the site working. And we'll come to the principal in this circumstance, or the consultant, and say, yep, we agree with you here, or maybe we give you a couple of recommendations here on how to operate the site. We can enable the site to work in your sort of orchestration platform that you're looking to engage on. We'll do a API cloud to cloud integration there. Here are the requirements for SCADA. and we can do that level of SCADA control as well. So we do have, Azzo do SCADA solutions as well.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
So we do full SCADA systems, full SCADA control. Either it be simple dashboards, or we can do full-blown HMI screens and all of that type of stuff that's required in control rooms and things like that as well.
Oh, like on an industrial kind of level.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's such a...
It's a very complex industry we work in, but I guess...
You must love it.
Oh, absolutely love it. But that's what I love, like talking to people about the different levels of requirements that they need, because not everyone needs a full-blown SCADA system with HMI screens and all that type of stuff. Sometimes it's, the simple farmer who's got a quite big patch of land that he's looking to do ground-mounted solar and a full battery system on, right? And he just wants to do market-facing with that,
So it's basically... You have to, as you said, it's fleshing out the details, because at the end of the day, people go, I want to make money from this. And then the next thing is, I want to make money from doing this, this, and this. And then after that is like, how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we implement it?
Exactly
What's the
right.
best way? And you're there to work out exactly what they need and provide these solutions.
Yep, that's exactly right.
This is a really interesting time we're living in. This whole... trading, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think back when I was at sort of ComApp days, at that time it was just sort of wholesale demand response, wholesale energy arbitrage is the word used before. Wholesale energy arbitrage, where we'd take like an input from the customer side, right? We'd say we'll sell 20,000 kilowatt hours at X targeted price.
Yeah.
Onto the spot price market, and that would be, triggered by a binary output, and would send the signals, dispatch that much power. But now you've got, FCAS, you've got wholesale demand response, you've got so many other elements that go into it, and the value stack is different to different providers out in the market, and the flexibility thing comes into play. It's like shopping for a car, right? People go and look at different value stacks and different things that are out there to make sure that they're getting the right payback period for themselves.
Yes.
Because this is all comes down to, what you're putting in there, right? And how long it's taking to pay that asset off. There's a lot of investment that goes into sort of these battery projects and other things that are added in there, like let's say a wind farm or all of that.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of asset cost that goes into it. And then how do you model to understand how long that's going to take to pay itself off? And there's a number of software providers out there that do help out in that space, and consultants that help provide that modeling, sort of return on modeling sort of investment.
Because a lot of them do that predictive, AI using predictive modeling in regards to like weather. I mean, they're getting fairly accurate with weather now. There's enough data around the world and, data sets for them to go, yeah, we sort of know to a certain degree that this is going to happen in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and we can adjust accordingly. Because that, I mean, but it is speculative, isn't it? That part.
It is, definitely.
Yeah.
That's also another thing that Azzo do. So we take obviously input from third-party hardware, but we also provide weather station hardware as well.
Yeah, right.
Which helps, with the modelling aspect, and also how the site should be operated as well.
Absolutely.
From understanding cloud patches and all that type of stuff as well, which is important. So that's another thing that we do, and it's such a complex area, right? There's so many things. Like when you start delving into it, you can start having these conversations for very long periods, and after a while, it all sounds like the same thing.
The brain starts pulsing. It is, but it really is a necessity now, isn't it? Like with all this, especially with the existing infrastructure, the stability of the grid, increased consumption.
Increased consumption, yeah.
It's changing in consumption. In some cases, load
The
profile.
load profiles are very important.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, it is
to work things out.
That's definitely the driver for all of it. Because you're right. The consumption. I mean, now on a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals are looking at their personal usage and how they're using power. If they have the ability to shift maybe the way that they use the power, and how does that work in regards to a return point of view, right?
As long as it doesn't compromise the ability to compromise that productive process, because you know what I mean. There's certain things you could turn off or delayed being turned on without affecting it too much. But in other situations, no, it's got to be like it is.
Yep. And that's also comes down to the operational point of view, right? So you can automate things as well, right?
True.
PLC can help, put strategies around how to control the site potentially. If it's a production site, they might need to change their behaviors on how they use the power on site. Automation comes into play in that part, as we've discussed now.
Yes.
And then reporting on the back of that, so having some data there. If they're not on site, for example, if that operator is not on site and something happens, right, which some things happen, right? Things happen. And how do they go about isolating? Motorized breakers and things like that, right? Then they have a layer of protection for themselves, right? So they're not on site. They can trigger a motorized breaker, no problems. It's isolated.
Yeah, right.
They might have a webcam hooked up to it or something like that. No,
I understand. I mean,
so
that's really important.
It's really important because sometimes businesses have a requirement to operate 24 hours and it's not even about 24 hours. They need a level of control. When they're not on site, someone needs to have a level of control on the site on what's happening and how do they go about isolating. How do they go about blackouts, for example, when they occur? Right? Is there an ATS in place that triggers a generator or something to trigger and hold up certain load components on site?
Or is it a manual transfer switch instead of that?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a number of aspects to all of this, and I think that having these conversations is important. The whole point of sort of coming on here and having these conversations is to give people some insight on the things that they need to think about. The things that they need to think about when they're making these decisions to buy a battery or buy a generator or whatever they're looking to buy. And then looking at the return on investment models and operational models on how they foresee the sites working. And then the compliance monitoring requirements that are all around that aspect.
Wow. All right. Microgrids.
Let's
talk microgrids.
Yeah.
First off the bat, what is a microgrid?
That's a good question.
That's the first.
Let me just take a deep breath. So microgrids is pretty much a number of assets, in some cases where they're grid tied, in some cases where they're islanded. So islanded meaning there is no grid and they're relying on solely those assets for self-consumption of power and being energized on site. In the other cases, microgrids can also be grid tied as well.
Let's talk about the grid tied ones. Yeah, I think we'll leave those other ones alone. They're effectively an off grid, like some of the parts of the WA. Up north, they've said forget about connecting to the electrical infrastructure. We'll just create a microgrid, big diesel gensets, solar batteries, off they go.
Yep.
But let's talk about the ones that are grid tied. Yeah.
Sure. So the grid tied ones, that number of assets, all the same similar sort of assets that we talked about before. They have a lot of requirements around more technical requirements on reserve capacities around the site, and how they calculate at any given point how much capacity is available to use and how much do they require once again. So and understanding the assets that they have and the limitation of those assets and how they're deployed to meet those objectives. So it's quite complex. When you've got generators in the mix, you've got things like dynamic spinning reserve would come into play. Understanding the load requirements on site and using assets accordingly to the capacity that you have available. Generally, they are export limited as well. So, there's a level of requirement required around the protection component there as well. The protection parameters and the hardware that's used. Not naming any names, IntelliPro. But yeah, I guess, microgrids are more and more coming into play now with people buying different assets.
Councils, there's a few councils involved in microgrids.
Yeah, they are. And there's councils, there's some energy providers also getting into that space where they're providing, community-based batteries and things like that.
Yes.
Which are also a part of a microgrid solution where they won't just have a battery, they might have some solar.
Invariably they have solar as well. Yeah.
So that all comes into that microgrid space. So there's number of players in that space.
And you can do the same thing. Like, can you still do the whole trading side of things with a microgrid as well?
Definitely. So that's something that we do here at Azzo. So we can help sort of not only design the microgrid itself, and how the components and help select hardware and everything else, but also communicate, but then also allowing the customer and providing them the enablement to do the trading. Yes.
One of the issues is that a lot of the councils, they get a community battery under that microgrid, and then they say, can we maybe do some trading as well? So in a lot of cases, it's a thought after the system's actually been designed and been installed. Is that something that you do? You come in and go, well, okay, you've got this, you've got that. Here's a solution for you guys if you want to do this. After all the other conversations you have to have. Wow. Definitely.
I mean, it's in those sort of scenarios, they might be used as a community backup sort of.
Yes.
When they've got a blackout scenario, they have reserve capacity available.
Correct.
But yes, they do come to us when times come and, they sort of think, okay, we've got this in place as a reserve, but we can also do this. And they sort of come to us and say, hey, we've got this asset, and how do we go about, monetizing this?
Yep.
And then, we say, okay, this is what we can do. We provide you X, Y, Z. And then you can speak to a number of people out in the market to help optimize that as well. And bring revenue, I guess. So definitely it's something that's happening more and more. There's a number of communities that are doing these type of projects. And it's quite interesting to see that, there's a lot of arena funding around these type of projects as well. So I've been fortunate to work with a couple of those projects. So it's been a good learning curve for me as well.
And with those microgrids, with the community batteries, invariably they do have a genset involved as well, as well as solar. So they get the solar, the genset, the battery, and they've got, they want some backup power, so they keep a certain percentage of reserve, but also it's, the battery's discharging, at night time when there's no solar and all of that stuff. So it's a semi-complicated system already, and then they come in and go, oh, we want to do this, that and the other. There must be occasions where you go, battery, if you want this in reserve, you've probably not got enough battery capacity, and based on solar irradiance, it's probably not the best way to go.
Definitely,
that must be a difficult conversation when you say it's probably a hard way to go.
I think it's not really a difficult conversation. It's more of a transparent conversation.
Right.
I think at times that I've said to clients that sometimes this might not make financial sense. But having that level of honesty is very important because, if someone buys a 100 kilowatt, 205 kilowatt hour battery and they want to go participate and do all of this type of stuff, right? In number one, in that sort of case, that might not work for that customer. If they're doing self-consumption and they've got a 100 kilowatt battery, 205 kilowatt hour, and they're wanting to participate in markets, there's probably not much reserve available in that battery, right? And depending on how they're using it just doesn't make sense for them, right? If they've got a 1 megawatt battery, for example, okay. But where's the line? Where does it start making sense?
That's the thing.
And that's the hard part. Because you really have to understand, the data.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? On what are the requirements.
And you're assuming that data doesn't change. If I offer you a financial proposal, that's based on a set of this data being what it is.
That can change.
And if that can change, that can change. And
that's variable.
That changes the whole proposition, doesn't it?
It does. And this is why clients clients look at all of this information and they think, what happens in that scenario? If I'm getting a better deal, this battery 5 years ago was costing me 10 years of payback return investment, and I can get 3 years. I want to go for the 3 years.
Yeah.
How do I do that? What's holding me back? Is it the infrastructure? Is it what is it? How do I go do that?
And that's
where we sort of come.
That's where
place.
you guys come in and try to get some clarity into an area which is like, it's bloody complicated.
It's very complicated. Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to a colleague of mine yesterday, and he was telling me about some inverters that he's working on a quite complex project, and they don't have variable droop settings, for example, right? And then he's had to create a level of code that does this virtual droop settings, right? So, which is quite complicated. And then I asked him, I said, is it a really common thing that happens? He goes, yeah, sometimes it does.
Wow.
And you just have to sort of deal with it. So, like, this is the whole thing. But like, and Azzo is a great representation of all of this. Having the right people in the business doing different things, and Azzo is heavily investing. Sorry, I'm talking like I own the business, I don't. But Azzo is heavily investing into all of the different areas and components that comes into place for these type of technologies. It's not just hardware related; it's also software related, and then engineering related, as well as the sales guys who go and talk about these solutions to customers and clients. So seeing the business I came into the business about 6 months ago, seeing it grow to even where it's going now, and further to that, it's quite amazing. And like I was saying to you offline, Valley, like there's so many people that make up for the conversations that have been had with the client, right? It's not one person just has the golf stick and he's doing the putt. No.
Yeah, right.
Everyone's having a go, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
But everyone comes together for the common solution. You'll have a number of people that are involved: engineers, software guys, project managers, sales guys, and different elements of the business come in and give their different inputs to come cohesively to provide that end solution goal for the end client, so they get the right solution. And it's the great thing is, once you've delivered one of these solutions to a client, and you see the site operating and they're happy and they're not chasing you down with a golf club, it's quite rewarding, and it's very rewarding to see that. And they've got a site that operates, and you've been a part of that process, and it's a great thing to see that. And it's, you feel very proud as a team, as an individual, as a business, to be contributing towards those type of solutions and those projects that are making an impact to the bigger cause, right? Because it's not just the average guy that's installing the solar at his home. It's everyone doing their part. for the greater cause. And
That's great. That's great. On that note, I reckon, as I said a few times, my head is reeling. I think I've got a lot of homework I need to do to fully understand, or at least partially understand what you've been saying. I'm capturing her a bit, but there's a lot that I realise how much I don't know. Thanks so much for coming in. It was an absolute pleasure. We've talked about quite a few things. We didn't even talk about cars. Next time.
Yeah,
that'll be for the
time.
next one.
That's for sure.
In another 6 months, when you've had a bit more time under your belt at Azzo, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about this amazing, interesting area. So thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Valley.
No.
Thank you.